Hello and welcome to another edition of Starside Chat, episode 59, I believe, if you're counting. With me, as always, is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Good. There's some big news to talk about this week.
Yes.
Should we? Do you want to dive right into it, or do you
Let's
want to
just
talk
dive
about
into
what
it.
we've been playing first?
Oh, you want to get that out of the way?
Maybe.
Yeah, I've mostly just been playing Cyberpunk still. I'm at I think 70 hours now. I have almost no of those blue icons on the map anymore.
Oh man,
because I am really getting close to the end, so I'm just doing all the side stuff that I can.
Yeah, you had more commitment to knocking those out than I did, I think. But
I've maxed out both my intelligence and my technology, and I'm almost maxed out on body. And eventually, at the main story, I'm at the part where there's about to be a big parade, I believe.
Ooh, that's a cool section. You'll enjoy that.
Yeah, it seems cool.
Yeah, that was very cool to play through. It's pretty visually spectacular at that part.
I'm going to be maxed out by the time that happens, probably.
That's awesome.
But that's pretty much all I've been playing. Oh, and I guess we're still playing Luigi's Mansion as well. Luigi's Mansion 3.
That game is so good. Yeah, we were texting a little bit about it. That was one of my favorite games of, 2019?
It's so good.
It's very, very good. It's so underrated, too. Everybody talks about Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey, but I think that one, probably falls as my number 3, Nintendo Switch exclusive. If I was
the production value is just so high, and every floor is so different. It's so charming overall.
It's very, very good and highly underrated. So definitely recommend playing that game if you haven't yet. I've also been playing something on the Switch because if you're a subscriber to Nintendo Online over this last week, I think it did just end, maybe yesterday. They were letting you download and play Captain Toad Treasure Tracker for free. And so I did that, and I made it through all 3 chapters of the main game. There is a little bonus that is a few additional levels that are, some of them are tied to Super Mario Odyssey. I think it was a promotion that they ran.
Yeah, I think so.
Back at around that time. And so some of those were cool. Actually, going through the Super Mario Odyssey ones, just being in those levels and having the music playing and everything, I was like, oh man, I need to play Super Mario Odyssey again.
It's maybe my favorite Mario game. I don't have a ton of nostalgia for 64.
It's definitely my favorite Mario game. I don't either. Weirdly, I skipped over that generation. It's really weird. So growing up, I had an NES and a Super NES, and I played all those 2D Marios on back in those generations. But I had a 64, but I never owned Super Mario 64 for some reason. It's weird. You
know what's crazy is I also had an N64, and I also never played or owned Super Mario 64.
I feel like it was just a weird time where I was I was too cool for school back then, and I just wanted to play GoldenEye, and I was I don't know, it seemed a little more adult, and that I was a kid who's I'm gonna just want the cool adult stuff,
My parents brought home the 64. I think it was maybe my birthday, and they were and we got you the game everybody's talking about, and they gave it to me, and it was Castlevania 64.
Really?
And it was very weird. There was just a bunch of skeletons riding motorcycles, and you have this whip that you can whip around.
Oh gosh.
I liked it. I played it a bunch.
That's one of those glaring blind spots in my gaming knowledge is the Castlevania series.
Yeah.
People love it, but I don't know. It was the same for Metroid games. It was Metroidvanias. I just that was a whole genre of games that I was just had no clue about, but until fairly recently, but I don't know. So anyway, speaking of that style, Castlevania thing, I've also put a little bit of time, not very much, just a little bit of time into Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, because I think it was a Stadia Pro title at one point, because I was scrolling through my Stadia library, and it was in there, and so I was like, ooh, I should play this because it's kind of it's not a Castlevania game. It's like I forget the guy's name, but one of the producers for the Castlevania series like made this game, and so it's very much in the same vein as Castlevania. And so I was playing some of that, and it is really good. I got stuck at a part. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, but it's kind of like a side-scrolling Metroidvania style RPG, and you're like getting all these different weapon types. I don't know. I was enjoying it quite a bit. I might go back to it. And then the other thing I've been playing is something that came out this week. It did get overshadowed in a big way by some big news that we're going to talk about here in a little bit, but it's Nobody Saves the World. You heard of this game?
Yes, I've been hearing all about it. A bunch of people I follow, like game journalists I follow on Twitter, have said it's super good, and a guy I follow on Twitch started a playthrough of it, and he really likes it as well. It's all over the place. It seems great.
Yeah, it's maybe because it's like the first game that has kind of come out. I don't know if it's necessarily the first game of 2022, but it's certainly like
it's the first one that's made a big splash for sure.
Yeah, it's like filling a void where everybody's like, well, there's nothing new to play, and then this game comes out, and so everybody dives in. But it's actually really good. We were texting a little bit because Ben Hansen, the host of MinMax on YouTube, was tweeting about it. And he said that it was the most addicted he's been to a game since Stardew Valley. And I thought that was just hyperbole because he was trying to get excitement for his interview with the devs of the game that he had posted. And so, but I did find it was on Game Pass, so I went ahead and downloaded it and started playing it. And I think he's right. It's really good. It is addicting.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a little, it's kind of top down. It's an RPG. And it's a little Zelda-like even. It's sort of an open world even. But you play this character called Nobody, and you very early on in the game, you find this like magic wand, and it enables you to change forms. And so as you're leveling up, you're like constantly unlocking these new forms. And so that kind of takes the part of the skill tree in your menu. Like first off, you unlock like a rat, and that helps you get through smaller areas where you couldn't access before when you were playing as Nobody. So you switch to the rat, and that'll allow you to like go through like small holes in the wall or something like that. And you're just running around biting enemies and like dealing poison damage to them. And then once you level the rat up, you unlock like further down the skill tree. The next ones you unlock are a guard who's basically a knight with like a sword, and then you have like a ranger with like a bow and arrow. And so it kind of has some of those like traditional RPG classes, but also you're unlocking like really weird things. Like there's a turtle as well that'll allow you to go across water. And so like when I unlocked the turtle and figured out I could go across water, I was like, oh, this unlocks so many other areas I couldn't access before. And so like to some degree, it is that sort of Zelda-like thing where you're like, ooh, I found this thing that will allow me to access all these other areas I couldn't before, but it's tied to those forms as opposed to like getting an item. And yeah, it's because you level all of them up as well, because I think like once you get a new form, you have all these different quests, and they're a little bit like bounties in Destiny, where like it's, hit so many enemies with this type of damage or whatever. And once you do that and you go into your menu and you complete it, it levels up your character, gives you some experience. And so they all start off with like an F rank, and you level up to D and C, B, A, and S. And some characters down the skill tree, it'll be like, in order to unlock the mermaid, for instance, you have to level up one of these forms to like B. And once you do that, you unlock this other character, and they each have like a different damage type. And so when you're going into these castles, that they kind of call them like dungeons, sort of dungeon crawly, but you'll happen upon enemies that have like wards up that you can't hurt them until you hit them with a specific damage type. And so you're kind of swapping forms to be able to deal with that. But also you eventually get to a point where you can also equip like one like different attack from one of the other forms on each character. So like if you wanted to, you could play as the knight who has his like sword slash ability, but then you can also borrow the ranger's like dodge roll ability. So you can be running around as the knight, dodge rolling and also hacking and slashing with your sword. And or you can use like the rat's one of his poison bite attacks if you need to like deal with an enemy that has like a purple ward up, so you can't deal damage to them until you deal some sort of poison damage to them. But yeah, it's really addicting to like get a new character and then you're like, okay, I want to check out what this guy's up to. And so you just run around and you're attacking enemies in the world, leveling him up and completing those little quests to like gain new abilities and stuff like that. And then you end up unlocking another character. And so you want to sort of leapfrog to that one. But also there are like little quests that you can get by talking to people in the world. And so those pop up all over your map. And so you're sort of going all around the open world, sort of clearing away the fog of war on the map and finding what you can find. And it's really, really good and really addicting. And since I started playing it, I just don't want to stop playing it, basically.
How far do you think you are?
Hard to say. I don't think I'm that far because I did watch that MinMax interview that I referenced before, and Ben Hansen said he was at roughly level 51 and he'd put maybe 15 hours in. And so he thought he was getting close to the end. And I'm definitely not that far. I'm only like level 20 something. And I have put maybe 7 or 8 hours or something like that into it. But, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how long it is, but I'm really, really enjoying it.
Man, I gotta pick it up. We were just talking before the podcast started about how I should get Game Pass because it's like there's no reason not to get it, basically.
Yeah. Especially even if you don't have an Xbox, if you like, I'm just playing it on PC. You can subscribe to Xbox Game Pass for PC, and you get access to so many games. Like I was able to play Forza Horizon 5 and the Halo Infinite campaign and Psychonauts 2 and The Artful Escape all last year. And I definitely would not have played any of those games if not for Game Pass. And like two of them ended up on my top 10 list last year. So
Microsoft is becoming a real juggernaut with that Game Pass.
They are. And it's one of those things that like we talk about how Sony is maybe trying to come up with their own competitor for that. And I feel like they need to. And I don't know. Nintendo's kind of marching to the beat of their own drum as they usually do, but speaking of which, they did add Banjo-Kazooie for the Nintendo 64 to Nintendo Switch Online, if you have that.
Do you have that?
I do, so I could play that, and I've thought about it because everybody has been talking about it this week and talking about how it's like one of the best 3D platformers that has ever been made and how a lot of people actually prefer it to Super Mario 64. I never played it when I was a kid, but
I did briefly when I was a kid. I got more enjoyment of it. A couple of years ago, somebody I watch on Twitch did a full playthrough of it, and some parts of it seemed very frustrating, and so I was glad to just be able to sit back and watch it, but the music in that game is just so good.
Yeah, I every now and then, this is really geeky, but sometimes just if I need some background music, I'll just go to YouTube and be like, Nintendo background music or something like that, and like inevitably like 100 different videos of people doing 2-hour compilations of like different Nintendo music, and you'll hear some like banjo in there sometimes. So but anyway, I guess we should just get right into this big news for this week.
About it.
So Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion with a B.
A lot of money.
That is a lot of money. And everybody was kind of doing like the comparison, trying to put things into perspective. So like recently Take-Two bought Zynga for $12.7 billion. Microsoft's previous purchase of Bethesda, of ZeniMax Media that included Bethesda Softworks, cost Microsoft, it was $7.5 billion. So yeah, like 10 times as much to get Activision Blizzard. Like, it's so much money. And I looked at it, and like Nintendo's market value is roughly like 55 billion. So like they paid more for Activision Blizzard than it would have cost them to buy Nintendo. Now, granted, like there was that one article that came out talking about, like, this was years ago, about how when Microsoft first got into video games with the original Xbox, they went to Nintendo and offered to buy them, and Nintendo just kind of laughed them out of the room. So I don't think Nintendo's ever going to get bought, at least not by Microsoft.
No, they're going to stay their own thing.
And incidentally, I think Nintendo, like, is affected by this pretty much minimally. Like, there's not a lot of Activision Blizzard stuff on the Switch. And if you look at like their top selling games, it's always like, we did this exercise like a few months ago in a previous podcast where I asked you to guess like the top 10 best selling games on the Switch, and they were all Nintendo first party games. So so they're not going to be hit very hard by this, but Sony certainly is going to be hit pretty hard because they're going to miss out on they'll possibly miss out on Call of Duty, which is always one of their biggest sellers. So
yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like, currently, right now, I still believe the PlayStation 5 is the better console and the one I would buy because of all, like, I'm expecting a bunch of sequels to games that I'm looking forward to come out for that console. Like, they have such a good relationship with Naughty Dog, and I don't know what Naughty Dog is doing next, but I assume it will be a PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah, they've got The Last of Us and Uncharted that they can still be making for Sony.
But I mean, eventually Microsoft is just going to own everything, it seems like. And the fact that they have this integration with Game Pass where it's like you can play it on your computer or your Xbox, like, I don't know, man. I had a dream this week. I went to sleep and I had a dream this week that I bought an Xbox.
Yeah.
And I would not have had that. I mean, if I've been a PlayStation guy pretty much since the PS4 came out. So what has it been, like 10 years or something like that? I mean, I had a 360 because everyone had a 360, but then they just bombed the Xbox One so much. It was just like such a destruction of just like, oh, they're so bad at marketing this, and it seems awful.
Well, and to be honest, like, I was also a 360 guy that entire generation, and like towards the end of that generation, like, maybe it was just where I was at in life, but I had just graduated from college, and so I was getting into the working world, and I was like, okay, well, I don't have that like huge circle of friends to just like start playing co-op or multiplayer games with anymore. Yeah. And so I was eyeing that PS3 and all those single player exclusives pretty jealously at that point. So it kind of had already started for me at that point. And then you go into, of course, the PS4 generation. And not only did Microsoft botch the marketing and release of the Xbox One, but also like Sony just had this massive lead in terms of exclusives drawing people to the platform. So they won that generation in like a big, big way. And so this is Microsoft kind of trying to reverse course and like right the wrongs of the last generation, basically.
And I will say, probably the thing that made me have that dream was their purchase of Bethesda. Like, Starfield is just so prominent in my mind recently that I just like, do I want to play that on TV or do I just want to play it on my computer? Or like, you know, my small computer screen, or do I want to play my giant TV that I just bought? Yeah. And it's, I don't know. I still don't know that I would buy an Xbox, but it's just like, it's getting harder and harder to figure out why that is.
Yeah, and especially with Game Pass, like we were texting a little bit about this, and you asked if you should get an Xbox, and we kind of talked about this, and I was thinking definitely if you subscribe to Game Pass, then it's certainly worth it. And like all of these games, like imagine Call of Duty every year now, just day one Game Pass. I mean, it remains to be seen whether they're going to keep that like an annual release or how they're going to handle it moving forward. Because we talked a little bit offline about will they sort of turn loose some of those developers who've just been like constantly on the the grind of making a new Call of Duty every other year in order to,
because it's
keep...
It's on a cycle right now, right?
Yeah.
Don't they have like 2 or 3 studios that are pumping it out, so there is one every year?
They have at least 3, I want to say, working on new Call of Duties, so
That's
that
crazy.
there's a new one every year. And for the most part, Activision has like left a lot of their other franchises like in the dust to just focus solely on Call of Duty because it's such a big cash cow for them. So I wonder if they kind of treat it a little bit more like Halo, where they're like, okay, you can have like the multiplayer, or maybe it's just the battle royale version for free, and then we're gonna do like a single player campaign that you can buy. And maybe that's what they do, but I would like to see what else those developers could do. You know what I mean?
Well, so Blizzard has been not having a great time recently. They've been mired in controversies, and also in general, just their games have sort of declined.
Yeah.
Overwatch 2 is never coming out, it seems like. They kind of messed up. I mean, this was a while ago, but they messed up that whole Diablo thing where they made that mobile game and like asked everybody if they had cell phones, and it was a whole thing. Like, I feel like that was kind of the start of people being like, actually, Blizzard is not cool. But this is maybe this is like, I mean, similar. You talked about other things that cost a lot of money, and you have in the notes that Disney bought LucasArts for $4 billion. And Disney, at least initially, tried to do some interesting things with Star Wars. And right now they have the TV shows that are, I think, better than the movies. But I mean, maybe this is another thing where Blizzard kind of became George Lucas and was like, oh yeah, we should like make Gungans a thing. And everyone was like, no. And so then another entity bought it out from Blizzard, and they're like, well, actually, let's take some time. Let's make these interesting choices. Let's take all of these properties out of this one person's hands and kind of revitalize them. And I don't know, maybe it's a good thing as far as that, but also, I mean, it's also a big time monopoly, which seems like people are not super into, which, I mean, rightfully so.
Yeah, and Activision Blizzard, interestingly, if you think about it, they're kind of like opposite sides of the coin. Like, you've got Activision pumping out Call of Duty every year, but then you have Blizzard, who just lives by the games that they've already released, and they just constantly update them. Like, they're two like polar opposites in terms of their approach. So I wonder how Microsoft handles that. Like, do we eventually see like World of Warcraft on Xbox consoles?
That's what I was going to ask you. Is there a world? Because, I mean, I've never played WoW, but it seems like you definitely need a keyboard and mouse to play it. I've seen a ton of MMOs that are kind of built to be on console, like that Black Desert Online and stuff, that just seem incomprehensible, but you can still play it with a controller. Do you think there's a world where WoW eventually releases for Xbox, what is it, Series X?
Yeah.
Their naming scheme is also terrible.
Yeah, that is a problem. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Like, the big question is, how do you port WoW and StarCraft to console, or should you even? And like, I know some games do allow you to connect a keyboard and mouse to the Xbox console, but that like a very small number of titles will let you do that. I wonder if maybe they just expand that and then just say, hey, you can play WoW on your Xbox console, but you're going to have to use a mouse and keyboard to do it. And I've thought for a long time that both Sony and Microsoft need to embrace that as like a thing.
Yeah.
Just to make it so that people can play with a mouse and keyboard if they want on a console. But
something else I didn't mention, but I have been playing is that Into the Breach was on sale on Switch. And I've already played that a ton on PC, but I was like, I'll pick this up on Switch just to play it. And it is very fun to play on a big TV, but it's also a little weird to play it on a controller, and I do kind of wish that I could just, all it really is a mouse. I don't even really need a keyboard.
Yeah.
It would be great if I could just plug a mouse into my Switch, but I mean, it's not super viable at this time.
Yeah, or if you could just connect one via Bluetooth, that would work as well.
And they put like Civilization out on like PlayStation and Xbox, and I don't know how you play that with a controller, but you do.
I remember playing quite a bit of Civilization Revolution But that was like built for consoles, so they had kind of like dumbed it down a little bit, maybe. But yeah, like the big Civilization games are also on console. I don't know how you play those with the controller, but
it's very weird. I don't know. I think this definitely puts a lot of cards in Microsoft's deck, but the one thing they don't have that still makes me lean towards PlayStation is PlayStation VR, which they just that was something else they revealed some more information about either this week or last week. That seems super promising and very interesting to me. And I mean, I'm very into Starfield, and it's something I want to know a lot more about, but the promise of PlayStation VR and it being contained and being pretty high resolution and the controllers seem pretty great, that's very appealing to me. And that's not something Microsoft at this time has. I mean, they have HoloLens, but that's pretty much dead.
Yeah.
Or just like in enterprise environments. It's not really consumer facing. So I don't know, man. I am intrigued by all of this Microsoft stuff, but I think I'm still solidly on the side of PlayStation at this time. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, until some of these games start coming out, like Starfield, like you mentioned, or like the next Elder Scrolls, which personally I'm just going to play on PC. Like I'm not going to go out and buy a console for that. But like a lot of people don't have that option. So then the question becomes, I'm trying to buy a new console because we're in this weird phase where consoles are still really hard to find. So there's probably a lot of people out there that are still sort of weighing, okay, which Twitter alerts do I want for like consoles back in stock? Do I want the Sony ones or the Microsoft ones? And I mean, I guess if you go,
I think the Xbox,
if you go down the list, so Sony has God of War, Uncharted, the Horizon games, Horizon Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. They've got Final Fantasy VII Remake.
All the Final Fantasies.
Yeah.
Whenever Final Fantasy 17 comes out, or 16, or whatever the next one is, that's going to be PlayStation exclusive probably.
Yeah. I mean, not all the Final Fantasies are exclusive, but certainly those are. And then you got Gran Turismo, you've got Spider-Man, you have Last of Us, Ratchet and Clank, Ghost of Tsushima, and Little Big Planet. Those were the ones I could think of, unless I'm missing something.
Who made Spider-Man? Insomniac?
Yeah, I think Insomniac.
They're making that Wolverine game
they're
as well.
Sort of building up a whole cinematic universe.
Yeah.
And then on the Microsoft side, you have Halo, Gears of War, Forza, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Starfield, The Outer Worlds, Avowed, Call of Duty, Overwatch, WoW, StarCraft, Doom, Tony Hawk, and Spyro, and Crash Bandicoot.
What's crazy about that is I don't care about a majority of those Microsoft ones, but the ones I do care about,
you care a lot about
giant ones. Yeah. Like Elder Scrolls and Starfield are just like such pillar. I mean, Skyrim has had such a long tail, and they've been working on Starfield for like 6 years supposedly.
Yeah.
Like I've started and played through Skyrim, I think 3 times, and maybe I'll do it again. I don't know. It's just it's such a good game, and if Starfield is up to that, like I don't know, man. It's a big one, you know.
It is. It's like you say. Like I'm not super invested in a lot of the Microsoft exclusives now, but some of those are super huge and like weighing very heavily in my mind. Certainly Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Starfield, but also Obsidian's new game, The Outer Worlds. I loved that game. So the fact that they're coming out with another one that's likely to be exclusive for Xbox, that's pretty big. And I know is it also Obsidian working on Avowed? That's that like sort of Elder Scrolls, but not Elder Scrolls. It's like a fantasy RPG being made.
I'm not sure.
I think it's
I am interested in that. We haven't seen any gameplay of that, I don't think. We saw a cinematic trailer, but I am very interested in that.
Yeah. And like I would definitely play Overwatch 2, but like shooters I want to play with a mouse and keyboard anyway, so I'm going to play it on PC. Right. So like my position as far as Xbox goes for a long time, going back to the PS4 and Xbox One generation, was if you've got like a solid PC, just buy a PlayStation and a Nintendo console and just don't bother with the Xbox console because you're good. And
I agree. I'm in the exact same boat.
And like, so I'm going to be fine not buying an Xbox console so I can sort of save that money and focus it on PlayStation. But, and I think that's maybe to their credit that they are so willing to embrace PC as well. Do you think they try to get Game Pass on a Sony console?
That would be crazy. There were rumors that they were going to try to get it on Nintendo for a while, but that never really materialized into anything.
I feel like if they did that, it would have to be streaming.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think the Xbox looks better physically as a console.
Sure.
I think it's cool that it looks like a big kind of server type thing.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that.
But I don't know, man. There's just such a case for the PlayStation 5. And again, a majority of it, to me at least, is the single-player experiences are just better on PlayStation. And what do you have, like Gears of War on Xbox? That's nothing. Whenever I think about Gears of War, I always just think about that stupid press conference we watched where they were like windsurfing on that ice lake. Do you remember that? Like, what was that?
And it looked like
what's going on in that?
It looked like Die Another Day when Pierce Brosnan was like coming down this bad green screen thing.
Foolish, but I mean, PlayStation is like, I feel just better. I mean, a majority of the reason I'm saying that is because I'm so hyped for whatever their VR is going to be, and they've released quite a bit of information about it, and it seems like it's going to be really top quality, and they're putting a lot of stuff into it. I've held off on getting a Quest 2 just because I don't super want to have my Facebook account linked to it or need to have a Facebook account. Which there are rumors that the next Quest is not going to allow that, or whatever. What is that thing called? The like Catalina. I don't know what it's called, but Cambria. That's not going to require it. But I'm ready. I'm primed to get into VR, and I think that the PS5 is going to be like what the Quest 2 is doing right now, but for people who actually play games. Like, I think it's going to be revolutionary, and Microsoft is just like not interested in that at all.
I don't even really care that much about VR, but I think like God of War, Final Fantasy, and Ghost of Tsushima are like such big tentpole franchises, because we talked about some of the ones that are like weighing heavily for us for Microsoft, but I loved Ghost of Tsushima, so if they made a second one, I would definitely play that, and I would be super bummed to not be able to play it. Same goes with like moving forward with the Final Fantasy franchise, in particular Final Fantasy VII Remake. Like, that first part was so good to me that I definitely want to see where that's going.
That's going to blow people out of the water when, I mean, I guess E3 is not a thing anymore, but
Summer Games Fest.
If there does continue to be something at the beginning of June where everyone showcases stuff, when they show the first trailer for the second part of Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's going to blow people out of the water. It's going to be so good. It's probably going to have like, it's definitely going to have like that Ju-on stuff. Junon.
And I feel like they almost need to like rush them and be like, okay, look, Microsoft's, pulled the rug out from under us a little bit, and they've gotten a lot of the momentum, but like, we're going to sort of put the brakes on that by releasing a big trailer for the next part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake.
As a company who has skipped out on the last couple big things, like they haven't really had a presence at like the Game Awards or at E3 last year.
Yeah.
They've kind of faded in the background, and Microsoft has really taken advantage of that. And they're just like, well, we've bought this and this, and this is happening, and this is happening. They really need to step up their game.
I questioned you in a text. I was like, so does Sony now need to counter by like buying some big studio? Do they need to like go make an offer to Square Enix or like Bandai Namco or Capcom or somebody like that, just to like increase their number of exclusive franchises?
How great would it be if they bought Konami and they gave Metal Gear Solid back to Kojima?
Ooh, that would be a cool idea.
That would be a bombshell.
Yeah, well, and I wonder, would they have to also buy Kojima's new studio?
They probably would. I mean, I remember a story. Everyone loves Kojima. Like, I remember a story where when he got kicked out of Konami, he was like, "Well, I created this Fox engine, but they're taking this Fox engine from me, so I just need an engine." And I forget who it was, but somebody was just like, "You can just have our engine. You can just take it and use it for whatever you want." Like some big name developer, and he was just like, "Oh, thank you." And I think that was what Death Stranding was built on.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But
they
I would
could
love for that
definitely
to
go
happen.
to somebody like that and try to buy that. Like, I don't know if they need to, but like maybe they do. Just to like
They need some kind of. I mean, they released that VR stuff, which maybe that didn't permeate the larger newsosphere, but they need to do something that is just like dropping a bomb and is like, guess what? We're also still in this, and even though we didn't just spend $70 billion on something, we're still making great stuff. I mean, they have a lot of
yeah.
Horizon Zero Dawn stuff, but I don't super care about that for whatever reason. I don't know why, but
Well,
yeah,
and
you're right. If they showed some Final Fantasy VII stuff, it would be great.
yeah, and like people talk about it's like a negative thing to have like industry consolidation and like monopolies and sort of an arms race for studios, but I don't know. It comes to a point where you almost feel like they have to, and maybe they don't. Maybe that's just like we're thinking too heavily on this giant purchase that just happened, but what if they did go to Capcom and buy them and then lock in like the Monster Hunter and Resident Evil franchises for Sony consoles?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like maybe they don't need to do that because they also like they have good working relationships with a lot of like the Square Enixes where they can just be like, hey, we want to have you make us an exclusive game. So maybe they don't even need to buy them. But and
I
like,
mean,
for sure, Microsoft's probably not going to be able to go to a Square Enix and just like steal them away from Sony. But
you look at, I mean, they probably were looking with envious eyes at Nintendo, who you're right, like we did that exercise, and a majority of the most like best-selling games were Nintendo. They have that top-down integration. They control everything about the developer, like from concept to like game cartridge. They have tailor-made it for their system. And now Microsoft can basically be like, well, build these games so that they work perfectly on Xbox and only Xbox, basically. And then we can port them to PC also. But they have top-down integration where it's basically like, here's a place where we can conceive of an idea, spend money on it, and then make dividends from that. We don't have to worry about the company we have the relationship with deciding to go with someone else, or people are saying it plays better on Switch. Why not just wait for it to come out on Switch? Things like that. That's the driving force of this, I think, is just for that consolidation to pull people away from that mindset where they're like, this is a great indie game. I can't wait for it to come out to Switch, you know? Now you have to basically have it on Xbox.
I feel like Nintendo somehow or another does have a somewhat decent relationship with Microsoft where like a game will, maybe I'm thinking more of just like indie titles in general, like something like a Loop Hero or Death's Door that's not really necessary. Well, was Death's Door an Xbox exclusive? Did that come out for PlayStation?
You might be right about that. Yeah, I don't think it did come out for PlayStation.
I feel like we see a lot of like indie titles come out on PC and then eventually they get ported to Switch. And like, so Nintendo doesn't originally get them, but they eventually find their way to the Switch because everybody wants their game on the Switch.
Yeah.
So I feel like they have like an interesting position where they can maybe hold some sway, just especially with like the smaller indie games that are not like Call of Duty is not going to show up on the Switch, but like if it's something like even this Nobody Saves the World game that I've been playing, the whole time I'm playing it, I'm thinking this would be so great on the Switch, and it's just like you know, an indie game is always going to be better on the Switch. I don't know why. Even though it obviously looks better graphically running on my PC, but like just to be able to have that portability, I don't know, it just adds so much to it in terms of like sales. Like I definitely want to have it on the Switch, but
Well, in sales also, like when you own stuff like this, you own the IP, so you own all the merchandising. Like Nintendo probably makes billions of dollars on just like plushies of like Mario and Luigi and stuff. Like you can buy those at Target even. You can go to the game section and there's just like a Tom Nook hanging out that you can purchase. And now like all of the Overwatch stuff that you still see everywhere constantly, that all that money is just going to start going to Microsoft instead of Blizzard, and they can just like merchandise it however they want. There's probably going to be, I mean, now the trend we're seeing right now is things are slowly becoming movies, with Sonic and Mario and Detective Pikachu. I would not be surprised if Microsoft is like, let's try it out. Let's try to make a. I mean, I guess there was even a WoW movie. I don't think it did well,
Yeah.
but there could very well be an Overwatch movie in the works. There was an Emoji movie, so there could be a Candy Crush movie.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Overwatch has not been made into a movie yet. It seems
crazy.
like an obvious thing to do. Even if it was like not a theatrical release, but so here's a question. What do they do with BattleNet?
That is a really good question. We were talking about that over text because it's so iconic. Just like the Battle.net name brand of like, oh yeah, download BattleNet, we'll get on StarCraft and play a couple rounds.
Yeah.
Like, do they integrate that into whatever the Xbox app is, or do they leave it its own thing? I think for now they leave it, and like way down the line, maybe like 2 or 3 years from now, maybe even like 5 years from now, it just starts getting integrated, especially when they start releasing new games. I think newly released games, I think, are going to be on the Xbox and not BattleNet.
Yeah.
I think stuff that's grandfathered in, like the original, like WoW will probably be on there for quite a while, and the original Overwatch and things like that. But any new releases, I think, are going to veer away from that, and eventually it's just going to die. Like 10 years from now, we'll see an article like they're finally turning off Battle.net.
Yeah, I can see that being the case. And it's worth mentioning that the deal isn't going to close until sometime in 2023. So, like, for sure, we won't see any of these changes that we're expecting until after that.
And also, Jason Schreier was like, yeah, they're probably going to try to regulate this also. There's a couple, like, politicians who are like, oh, we need to look close at this and see if we can allow this to occur.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, it is such a huge deal that certainly you wonder about something like that. But and there was also a quote from Phil Spencer. There was an article. Let me see if I can pull this up. It was from, I don't know how you say this website, Dexerto? I don't know.
Oh, I have no idea.
Anyway.
I know what you're talking about.
They had an article up where they had a quote from Phil Spencer where he said that, because people were asking about, well, are all of these Activision Blizzard games going to become Xbox exclusives? And he said that it's not their intention to pull communities away from Sony's platform, and they want to remain committed to that. But like, also, they kind of said the same thing when they bought Bethesda. And obviously, like, shortly after that, they announced that all of Bethesda's upcoming games would be exclusive.
He's not lying, though. I mean, their intention is to make money. It's not to do that specific thing. So they are going to do that thing, but they're just intending to make money.
Right. Their intention was not specifically to pull it away. It was to make money. So I guess he's not lying when he says that, but also that's not a way of saying that they're not going to pull all the franchises away from Sony.
Yeah.
So another question, because I do like Overwatch. It's been a while since I played it, but it was a game that I used to sort of hop back into every once in a while. And like we jokingly said, like, Overwatch 2 is never going to come out, and maybe it never will. Who knows? But supposedly somebody there at Blizzard is working on Overwatch 2, and the original like concept when they unveiled it was, we're going to have like a lot of co-op stuff, and that's going to be sort of the main aspect of Overwatch 2. But like, as far as the multiplayer goes, it's basically going to be the same as Overwatch 1. And so you can be running Overwatch 2 and play with somebody who's running Overwatch 1. And of course, Overwatch 1 is on Switch, it's on PlayStation, and very soon it could be Overwatch 2 releasing exclusively to Xbox. How is that maintained, I guess? Are they still going to go with the multiplayer as multiplayer regardless of whether you have Overwatch 1 or 2?
It's an interesting question.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions around this purchase, and we're not going to know the answer to them, I guess, but I don't know. Maybe we just leave it at that for now, and we just move on to our top 5 most anticipated games. Unless you had another point you wanted to bring up.
No, I think we've covered it. It'll be interesting to see how it evolves, especially. Again, I know there's no E3, but part of me is always like, oh man, I can't wait until the beginning of June. I wonder what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I feel like we will get some game news at the beginning of June, just for old time's sake at least. So I'll be excited to see what happens and if we see any inklings. I mean, it's so early in this that probably we're not going to see dividends from any of this for years. But
yeah, I was going to say, I honestly don't, even if there is like a big presence for Xbox at Summer Games Fest, I can see nothing really being made of it because the deal hasn't gone through just yet.
Yeah.
And so it'll probably be a thing where we won't hear about it until sometime next year.
I think you're probably right.
All right, so we do want to talk about sort of a follow-up to our podcast last week where we talked about our top 10 games of 2021. We're now looking forward to our top 5 most anticipated games of 2022. So I guess I will give you my number 5.
Let's hear it.
It is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. So I'm not I have fond memories of playing Kirby's Adventure as a child on the NES, but I have not played a Kirby game since then because they've not really appealed to me. However, the trailers they've put out for this game, going 3D and making it look an awful lot like Super Mario Odyssey, I think. Am I wrong? Move. Is it the same developer as Super Mario Odyssey?
Oh, is it? I don't know.
Maybe I'm misremembering that, but I thought I had heard that at one point. Don't quote me on that, but anyway, it looks fantastic, and it's coming up here in like a month and a half. So
it's coming up.
So yeah, I think it could be like that sort of Bowser's Fury thing from last year where it came out and just kind of sucked everybody in, and there was like a big moment online when it came out and everybody was talking about how great it was. And so I'm looking forward to that. I do think it's going to be a lot of fun. What's your number 5?
My number 5, I don't own currently a PlayStation 5. And so I thought about not putting this on my list, but I couldn't help but put God of War Ragnarok as my number 5.
I'm surprised it's so low.
I have very fond memories of you and me playing God of War, which we have those on our YouTube channel you can check out. But
yeah, we started a Let's Play. We did not finish it together, but we did separately finish the game.
It was so fun and such a good game, and it just kept going. I was so surprised by like how high quality it was and the length of it, and just like everything about it was super fun and tight and good. And I'm super excited for God of War Ragnarok. I at this time cannot play it because I don't have a PlayStation 5, but I hope to have a PlayStation 5 when it releases, and so that is my number 5.
Yeah, like you said, it's hard to say whether this is actually coming out in 2022, but like once it does come out, and there's been some comments like just based on the trailer saying it just looks like more God of War.
That's what I want, though.
I was going to say, I don't think that's a negative, though, because I loved the first one so much that I would play more of that. So if they want to give that to me in Ragnarok, I'm all for it. But also, I feel like they will find a way to change things up. And obviously, they're going to be pushing the story and the characters forward. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. My number 4 is Horizon Forbidden West. Now, this is coming out even before Kirby and the Forgotten Land. But I'll say I didn't love the first one as much as everybody else did, because it seemed like everybody was talking so highly about it. And it took me a little while to get into it. I think the opening hours of that game are genuinely not good. Like the story is just like really generic teen dystopian fiction, like just sort of a mashup of all of those dystopian teen movies that you've seen.
The Maze Runner.
Yeah. Like, go watch like the first hour of those movies and then play Horizon Forbidden West and tell me that it's not exactly the same. But once it kind of spreads beyond that and the world opens up and you're able to sort of get into more of the stealth and some of the combat and you're able to explore and talk to people, that game really opens up and gets a lot more interesting. And of course, like the creature design is very cool. So, and it kind of hurt Horizon quite a bit to have launched like the week before Breath of the Wild. So
yeah,
obviously they're safe from that this time, unless Nintendo suddenly randomly is like, by the way, Breath of the Wild 2, go! And it's like out the same day.
That would be my dream.
I mean, I also hope that happens, but it won't. So anyway, I think this will be a fun game. It looks fantastic, like just visually speaking, it is pretty astounding. So I'm looking forward to playing it, and I hope it ends up being like one of the top games for me at the end of the year, but we'll see. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is Somerville from the makers of Inside and Limbo. They made a new studio, and they're making Somerville, and we got a pretty lengthy trailer. It was like a minute and a half maybe at the Game Awards. And man, does it look good. It looks like they are expanding on the formula in a big way, but they're still keeping the like very interesting like storytelling where there's not really any like there's no dialogue ever, but you're seeing a visual story, and it's just like it pulls you in so deeply. I played through Inside I think 3 times, and I just like every time I was just enraptured. And I'm super excited for this because it seems like it's going to be not just like 2D or like 2.5D or whatever. There's going to be elements where you're maybe in a ship at some point, like a spaceship, or I don't really know what's going on, but I love the art style and I love the gameplay style, and I just like can't wait to sink my teeth into this because I'm sure it's going to just like pull me in and I won't be able to stop playing.
Yeah, I agree. I think this game looks fantastic, and I'm super excited to play it as well. Does this one have a release date, or is it still TBD?
I think they said 2022, but I don't actually. Hold on, let me look it up. I thought they said that it was going to come out this year at the Game Awards, and that was like a big deal. It just says 2022.
Okay. I somewhat tried to stick to games that were a little bit more likely to come out this year. But having said that, I'm also going with a game that sort of has a nebulous release date of 2022 for my number 3.
Hit me with it.
Trek to Yomi. Do you remember this game?
I don't. What is this?
Look up a trailer for it. It basically looks like side-scrolling, black and white Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh.
I think the art style looks awesome.
Yeah.
I loved Ghost of Tsushima, and maybe this says more about my love of Ghost of Tsushima than it does my excitement for
this looks great.
Trek to Yomi, but I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's one of those games that I will probably play on day one and be super happy with it. So definitely looking forward to that.
My number 3 is, we already talked about it, it's Kirby. I'm eagerly anticipating that, and we'll be picking it up ASAP when it releases.
Nice.
What's your number 2?
My number 2, we already talked about it. It's God of War Ragnarok.
Really?
Yes. So it could not make 2022, even though I just said I'm mainly trying to stick to games that I think will come out this year. Like, they showed so much of that game in like a previous gameplay trailer. So I feel like it will definitely come out this fall. I think
you're right.
I almost think it's more of a sure thing than even Starfield coming out, and even though Starfield has given a release date. So I loved the first one. Like you said, we sort of started a let's play of it, and we didn't get to finish it together, but it was like for me that year, like game of the year was down to God of War and Red Dead Redemption 2. And I think I ended up giving it to Red Dead Redemption 2, but like God of War was way up there. And I think
I loved it.
It was such a good game. The combat was so good. I'm definitely very, very excited about God of War Ragnarok. What's your number 2?
Listen, okay, this is going to be controversial, okay?
Okay.
My number 2 is Breath of the Wild 2.
Okay.
I am looking forward to this game, and it's going to be very, very good. But the reason it's not my number 1 is because it is a known quantity, I feel. I think I know pretty much what this game is going to do and how it's going to feel, and I'm going to love it, and it's going to be really good and amazing. But as far as things I'm anticipating, I definitely am anticipating this a lot, and it's something that I am excited for in a big way, but there is something that I am anticipating more than it at this time. So that is my number 2.
I thought you were going to say it was controversial because it's not going to land in 2022. In fact,
I have high hopes that it will.
In fact, that is the reason I left it off my list, is because I'm not convinced it's coming out this year.
I think it was supposed to come out last year, and I think this is the year it's going to come out.
I don't know. I mean, I hope you're right and that I'm wrong, but I like zooming out. Breath of the Wild 2 is like one of my most, if not my most anticipated game. But like, again, I don't know that it's going to come out this year. So I'm kind of, I left it off the list just because I'm not sure it will actually come out. And I didn't want to have the same list again next year. Because I feel like Breath of the Wild 2 was probably on my list of most anticipated games last year. So
100%. I'm sure it was my number 1 last year.
Yeah. So I'm not going to let them do it to me again. So I went for my number 1. I went with Starfield.
Yeah.
Even though I just said it may not come out this year. They've at least put down a release date, which makes me more hopeful for Starfield coming out this year than a sequel to Breath of the Wild. Now, of course, Nintendo could like next month do a direct and be like, hey, Breath of the Wild 2.
Here it is.
It's going to come out right now. Go ahead and download it. But Starfield, like I'm a huge fan of Bethesda RPGs. I love Fallout. I love Elder Scrolls. So the fact that they're sort of taking that formula to a space-faring RPG is very, very exciting to me. And it's definitely one of the games I've been anticipating very, very highly ever since they announced it a few years ago. Like you said, they've been working on this for years now. So I definitely hope they're able to release it this year and that it's amazing.
I'm in a place right now, because I have been playing through Cyberpunk, I am just like very into the idea of a first-person game with like very deep systems that I can just wander around in and explore. Cyberpunk has been great for that, but obviously there was controversy, and I do frequently still see some bugs and crazy glitches that occur. And to see, I am just so I'm hungry for information about Starfield.
Yeah.
I watched that watch video like 3 times. I had a dream where I bought an Xbox just because I think of Starfield. I'm anticipating this so much. I want to see gameplay of it in my core.
I know. For months now, I have just been like daydreaming about that big like Bethesda style E3 press conference where Todd Howard goes up on stage and just like deep dives all the systems and all the gameplay and the visuals and everything and talks about.
I think that's going to happen this year, even though E3 is like dead. I believe that we will get some sort of Bethesda showcase this year, and I think that is going to be the main push of it. Even though Bethesda's owned by Microsoft now, I think they're going to let them do their own thing and be like, hey, here's the Bethesda show. Because this is the cash cow. This is why they bought Bethesda. But this is this Starfield. I mean, I don't believe that Elder Scrolls 6 is anywhere in development at this point.
Yeah.
So this is it. Like this is going to be it.
One guy scribbling down notes on a napkin is the development of Elder Scrolls 6 at this point. But
there's like a guy, and he is in like a closet, and he's like, "Well, what if there were like birds?" And that's it. That's as far as they've gotten.
I think you're right. It's probably at this point all hands on deck for Starfield, trying to finish it so that they can meet their release date in November.
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
Skyrim has had such a long tail and been released so many times, I think in part because of all the DLC.
Sure.
Do you think when they announce Starfield, in that same announcement, they'll say, here's a roadmap, and these are the things to expect down the line? Or do you think, because 100% there's going to be DLC for this, but do you think they stay quiet about the DLC, or do you think they say, this is what you're buying, this is the package you're buying, expect this roadmap over the next, 2 years?
That's interesting. I know typically when a game comes out and they're immediately like, oh, also expect this DLC fairly shortly, a lot of people,
because they did that with Cyberpunk.
A lot of people have a tendency to go, well, why wasn't this just part of the main game? Are you trying to upcharge me for something that you just pulled out of the game that should have been in the main game?
That happened with Mass Effect 3, didn't it? Where people found files in the source code of Mass Effect 3 and they were just oh, they just took it out.
Yeah, something like that. I know there was a DLC that involved an additional character that you could add to your party, and there was
Prothean.
The Prothean guy, Javik, I think is his name. And they found that it seemed like maybe that character was supposed to be in the full game from the start, and they just pulled him out to charge as DLC for that, which was not cool. I feel like people are very wary of that right now, and so you almost have to let the game come out, wait a little bit, and then be oh, by the way, we also have all this DLC, especially now, because you talked about Cyberpunk, and how they had this whole plan, they wanted DLC, they wanted to bring out a GTA style online multiplayer.
Yeah, there was gonna be multiplayer. Remember that?
They had so many post launch plans for Cyberpunk, but it came out in such a buggy state that they had to sideline all of that stuff and just work on fixing the game first. And now, we don't even know, are they ever going to do that online mode?
Who knows?
Who knows?
There was going to be a Netflix anime about Cyberpunk, I think.
I don't remember that.
I think I remember that, but I don't know if that's still happening. Obviously, it takes a while to animate things, but
yeah,
I don't know, man. I believe that Todd Howard is a showman, and he understands that people want that one more thing. My favorite thing that I've talked about so many times on this podcast. And wouldn't it be crazy if they get through the 40-minute deep dive on Starfield, and at the very end he's like, oh yeah, and one more thing, Starfield's it's not just gonna be this game, it's gonna be this, and they reveal this DLC, or these are our plans for the future, look ahead with us at the Starfield to come, and it's crazy stuff. Also, do you think, this is not going to happen, do you think that they will have some kind of crazy celebrity cameo?
A voice
We don't know
actor?
anybody who's in this game. Yeah, because, they had Picard in, which one was he in?
Oblivion? Yeah.
And then, wasn't there someone famous in Skyrim? Or maybe I'm wrong about that.
I don't remember there being anyone famous in Skyrim.
But wouldn't it be crazy if, they were and now, here's your first trailer for, Starfield, and here's your
here's Keanu Reeves. Also, he's here.
Keanu Reeves would be crazy. Wouldn't that be a crazy thing on his part if he didn't tell anybody he was in Starfield? He just keeps being in giant blockbuster games. Or Harrison Ford comes out of nowhere and is like, "What's up? I'm your commanding officer, Jarrison Ford."
Jarrison Ford. I feel like he does not want to be in video games.
No, 100%.
So you probably would not get him, but somebody like him. Who would be somebody like Harrison Ford that could show up in Starfield?
Ben Kingsley?
Yeah, but he doesn't have the geek fandom that somebody like Harrison Ford or Keanu Reeves would have.
Mark Hamill.
Yeah, you could get Mark Hamill.
Could do it.
Play a villain.
Did you see that Horizon Zero Dawn thing where they revealed that the Matrix lady was going to be in Horizon Zero Dawn?
Forbidden West? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
She was in.
I don't know, who else would I be excited for?
She's been in a lot of video games.
What if they're like, here's your that's the thing, we don't know anything about this game. We don't know if like you have a pilot in your ship or whatever, or if you're just in a single person ship. But like, what if your best friend is like Jeff Goldblum? Wouldn't that be crazy? He's playing like a crazy alien.
That'd be awesome. I definitely want Jeff Goldblum to be like
Peter
one of the
Dinklage
side
was around
characters.
for you for the first year in Destiny, and that was great. Like,
Dinklebot,
I feel like
yeah.
it's almost a known thing to like grab a big celebrity and have them be at least someone in your main story. So
Yeah,
I feel like that would be a cool thing.
it would be very cool. I don't like Bethesda. Have they done that? Because I feel like there was nobody to speak of in Fallout 4, unless I'm forgetting somebody.
Your dad wasn't. Oh, not in Fallout 4, but in Fallout 3, your dad was Liam Neeson.
Yeah, he came in and recorded for one day and was just your dad for the opening scene, and then like a little bit maybe later. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they don't do that often. I guess they did. Matthew Perry was in New Vegas. Do you remember
Was
that?
he? Who was he?
He was one of the, I forget the like group he was with, but at the very beginning of the game, he shows up with some goons and like shoots you and steals something from you.
That blows my mind. I never knew that.
Yeah. Old Chandler Bing comes up and shoots you. So
Shenandoah Bong.
Shenandoah Bong, yep.
That's crazy. I don't know. I my brain is on fire whenever I think about Starfield. I just like, we don't know anything is the problem.
Yeah.
We have seen zero gameplay. All I've seen is that watch, but I've seen it over and over again.
Well, and speaking of
And
that, because we talked last week about the watch, and you said you had seen like a video where somebody, you didn't know where they had pulled the information from, but they were talking about how more of this was going to be unveiled during a June like press conference or like video of some sort.
That's what they said, but who knows? I mean, this is just some random YouTube guy who got a hold of the instruction manual for the watch.
Yeah. I don't know. I am hotly anticipating Starfield and all news about Starfield. So was this your number one? Is that what you were saying?
It was, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty awesome. And it's like the only thing, if you look right now on the list of like 2022 like video game releases, like Game Informer always has like a list up on their website that you can check that just like you can go down by month of like the announced release dates for games. And once you get past like June or July or August or something like that, it's nothing. And then Starfield in November, just like the lone thing that's been announced.
I was surprised you didn't put the Witch Queen on your top 5.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Destiny stuff, I don't typically put them on like a top 10 list.
Yeah.
I am probably going to play that, but like at this moment, I'm not like on the Destiny train. So it's like one of those things where it comes and goes. Sometimes I'm really into it, sometimes I'm not. Also, it happens to come out like the same week as Horizon and like Elden Ring. So
Elden Ring, that was something else we didn't put on our lists.
Yeah, we talked about it before, and we probably will try to play it, but like it's one of those things where I'm cautiously optimistic that I will be able to rise to the occasion with the game, not the other way around, where like I'm just crossing my fingers that it's going to be good. Like, no, everybody's going to say that this is the best game ever made, and I'm just hoping that me personally can get in there and not feel useless and just fall off of it because I can't do anything.
You played Sekiro, didn't you?
I did not, no. What did I play? A little bit of Bloodborne because it was a PlayStation Plus game at one point. So yeah, I don't know. I will probably try to make a go with Elden Ring. I don't know if it will last, but we'll see.
I'm excited to watch someone play it. I'll say that. Some games I just like don't want to engage with, but I want to watch someone who's good at games play them and just like eat while I watch.
Yeah, that's true. It's one of those things where if I know this game is going to be really tough and kind of frustrating, Like, I don't want to put myself through it, but I will watch somebody who's good get through it and make it seem like it's nothing. So
Yeah.
maybe it is a game that I will end up watching more than playing, but who knows?
Who knows?
Let's look at some of the other releases. So we've got Pokemon Legends Arceus. That's like next week as we're recording this right now. That Sifu game that comes out in February 8th. I'm kind of looking forward to that. That might be a cool game.
I'm interested to see that.
There's a game called Monarch that I think sounds interesting. This is, I believe, from like some of the developers of the Persona series. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that one's one that I marked to keep an eye on just because of like its pedigree. So I will keep an eye out on that. Elden Ring, we already talked about it, comes out February 25th. Triangle Strategy comes out on March 4th. This is that tactics game in the universe of Octopath Traveler.
I'm not interested to play that, but I'm interested to watch. That's another one where I'm interested to watch someone engage with that.
Yeah, I've always heard such good things about Octopath Traveler, but I don't know if it's necessarily up my alley, so I might watch some of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Chocobo GP comes out on March 10th if you want a more Final Fantasy themed Mario Kart. Tunic comes out on March 16th. That's a game we've been looking forward to for a while. It's kind of a top-down Zelda-like.
That's an Xbox exclusive, right?
It is, Xbox and PC. And then Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. That's coming to everything, I believe, except for Switch. That's that sort of more Dark Souls-like Final Fantasy game. Mm-hmm. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, we talked about that. That's coming on March 25th. Tiny Tina's Wonderland, also coming out that same day.
Pass.
Forspoken comes out on May 24th. I hope that's good, but I don't know. We'll see. Saints Row comes out August 23rd. That's been pushed back several times.
Yeah.
And then Starfield, November 11th. I think that was like the last. I guess Stalker 2 also coming out supposedly December 8th. I feel like both of those games could possibly slip into 2023, but we'll see. And then everything else is just TBD. So some of the highlights, that Arc Raiders game, do you remember that trailer?
Yes, that one was interesting to me, but then I heard a lot of stuff like it's being made by Tencent and it might have a bunch of crazy microtransactions, but the concept of it looked interesting to me, and I liked the weird aesthetic of it. Yeah,
I liked the aesthetic. I liked the, like you said, I kind of liked the concept of it. So I'm hopeful for that game, but we'll see. Bayonetta 3 supposedly might come out this year.
I almost put that on my list because I love Bayonetta 1 and 2, but
right.
I don't know, man. That's something where we didn't see anything about it for so long, and then we saw that really cool cutscene like, a year ago? And I still think that's a ways off. I don't think that's going to be 2022.
Okay. And then Dragon Ball The Breakers. This is that game that's like, what is that? What is that one game where it's like one...
Dead by Daylight?
Yeah, Dead by Daylight, but in the Dragon Ball universe.
What a weird game this is.
I know. Just mind-blowing that even exists, but...
I don't know what to think about that.
Ghostwire Tokyo, one I'm keeping an eye out for.
Interesting.
God of War Ragnarok, we talked about it, but it does not have an official release date yet. Hogwarts Legacy, is that game even coming out ever?
I don't know. Is that real? We saw so much gameplay. It seems pretty far along, but
it's also like gone off the radar for like a year.
Yeah, very true.
Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. You think that
I will buy?
Do you think that comes out this year, or does that get pushed back to?
I think so. I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility. I definitely will pick that up because I loved the first one a lot, and I'm very excited to play the second one.
Metal Slug Tactics. I thought that game looked really good.
That is something else I will definitely pick up.
Yeah, if that makes it this year, I will definitely pick it up. Planet of Lana. I don't.
That looked interesting to me.
It looked interesting, but if you put a gun to my head, I could not describe it to you right now. Redfall. That's that Xbox exclusive shooter that I want. Is this the one that's like vampires that you're shooting?
Yeah. Yeah, it's that weird cinematic trailer that was there one more thing a couple of years ago, and I just was pretty underwhelmed by it.
Same. Replaced. Do you remember this one? This is like, I feel like that's that side-scrolling, like,
yes,
indie game.
That looked interesting to me.
That looked very interesting to me. I will definitely play that.
That one I'll check out for sure.
Sea of Stars. They had a trailer, I believe, during a Nintendo Direct recently. This is, I forget. I think it's supposed to look like sort of a classic SNES style RPG. I like the look of it. I will definitely keep an eye out for that. Somerville, you talked about it. Not an official release date just yet. Sonic Frontiers. I'm not really a Sonic person. Are you?
That's the Breath of the Wild one, right?
Yeah, I believe they did say that that's going to be more level based, so maybe a little bit more like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, where they tried to give you the impression that it was an open world, but it's not.
Yeah.
Splatoon 3, not really our type of game. Let's see. Star Trek Resurgence. Is this that Telltale Star Trek game?
Oh, that could be. Yeah.
Steel Rising. This is that game from, I believe, the makers of Greedfall that had that crazy looking art style that almost looked a little bit like the opening cinematic for Westworld, if you recall.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
The Invincible. I put this down. I think this is an indie game that's based on a book. It sounded kind of interesting to me. It's sort of a retro sci-fi adventure game. Look that up if you get a chance and you've not heard about
Invincible.
And then, of course, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel does not have a release date. Lord of the Rings Gollum, also no release date.
I don't know why they're making that.
It seems like 15 years too late, but Trek to Yomi, I talked about that. Looking forward to that. And then Wizard with a Gun, if you recall that trailer, looked pretty good.
Mm.
And that's all the things that I marked down. Of course, that's not an exhaustive list, but that's what I've got. Do you have any...
Watching some stuff about the Invincible.
Oh, yeah? What are you seeing?
It looks interesting. It's a very interesting aesthetic.
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty cool.
Ooh, this robot I'm very into this robot. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much touched on everything that was on my radar. There's nothing else I am super looking for. I mean, in a perfect world, we would be getting some sort of announcement. There was rumblings like last week and the week before about how CD Projekt Red was going to finally reveal the like 1.5 patch for Cyberpunk, and it was going to include a bunch of DLC like news. And they were going to almost like relaunch the game under a new name, like Cyberpunk Complete or something, or I'm not sure.
Yeah, because there's supposed to be a Cyberpunk PS5 and Xbox Series X release this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would love for there to, especially as I'm reaching the end of Cyberpunk and realizing that there's like not too much left for me to do, I would love for them to announce that there's going to be more for me to do, but who knows? I mean, that's probably... I don't know what's going on with them now, so...
Yeah, I would definitely jump back into that if they brought out some, like, cool new DLC or did actually come out with, like, that online mode that they talked about. Yeah. I don't know if they will do that, but I will definitely jump back into it at some point if they should do that. Do you got any parting wisdom for us this week?
Zach, I have a recommendation.
Okay.
Did you ever watch that one anime movie Summer Wars back in the day?
I don't think so.
There's a period of time right when VR was really taking off that I was like super into any fiction that included virtual reality. And Summer Wars was a great little anime movie that was beautifully animated, involving a virtual world. And there's a spiritual sequel coming out to that everyone's talking about called Bell, that takes place kind of in that same virtual world that was imagined in Summer Wars. And it's, I guess, based on Beauty and the Beast. But it's coming out soon, and I think it's going to be really good. If you haven't checked out Summer Wars, check it out. It's probably available to rent everywhere these days. And it will get you amped for Bell, which will be released this year.
Interesting. I'm going to have to look this up.
But that's my parting wisdom for the week.
All right. Well, go ahead and look us up on YouTube. If you search for Starside Cafe, you will find us there. Also, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, also at Starside Cafe. And leave this podcast a review on Apple or Spotify. It's Starside Chat. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.